except the federal government gives directive to EFC, ICPC, police and all that, DSS, there is no way the state governments can contribute.
But a lot of people, hopes were actually raised when President Buhari said the 200 Naira note still remains legal tender, and a lot of people expected that he would follow that up by ensuring that the central, according to what he said, it would follow that up, ensuring that the CBN recirculates the old 200 Naira note. But even the 100 Naira note, which is still legal tender, isn't available. But if all these denominations were available, perhaps the suffering wouldn't be this serious.
Look at the problem. Like I started with that approach. I said, when Mr. President gave that order that the old 200 Naira note should be recirculated, Nigerians almost lost their patience. They were not patient enough to allow the commercial banks to start circulating the old 200 Naira notes. If you notice...
How do you mean?
Mr. President gave the order like yesterday. Today, there was spontaneous reaction from Nigerians occasioned by the scarcity they have been suffering about the Naira notes.
Shouldn't there be immediate immediate
when you say immediate follow-up, personally, I was going to Sagamu the following day. And after, in fact, from the park, I didn't have the Naira note to pay. I didn't have enough on me. So the first vehicle I boarded, the driver asked me to come down. I disembarked from the vehicle even before the vehicle commenced its journey, because I was trying to plead the driver that I wanted to make transfer. So I have to wait for the next vehicle. Eventually, I was lucky. The driver allowed me to make transfer. But immediately we got to Aramuwe, we discovered that there was a barricade. We were on the same spot for more than 3 hours until the military and the police came and started dispersing protesters. And they didn't vacate the road without a good number of gunshots. But at the end of the day, it was intervention of the military personnel and the police that cleared the road before we could proceed the journey. So what I'm trying to say in essence is, Mr. President gave the order like yesterday. Today, Nigerians were not, I'm not blaming Nigerians because they already suffered immensely. So they were not patient enough to allow the banks to start circulating the old 200 Naira notes. Come to think of it, the umbrella body of the employees of bankers now are now asking them to stay away from work. Any state they feel they are not safe or where banks are being attacked. That may even worsen the situation. So what I'm trying to say in essence is, if Nigerians were patient to allow the old Naira note, 200 Naira note to be recirculated, perhaps it would have eased the scarcity. But again, let me point to one thing. Sorry.
Okay.
Look at this forthcoming election on Saturday. You agree with me that according to INEC is dealing directly with CBN. And INEC have said that they are engaging 388 vehicles. They're engaging 88,000 motorcycles. They're engaging 4,000 boats. And if that is the case, INEC have said that they are getting their funding direct from CBN. So what I'm trying to say in essence is, if CBN eventually release that bulk of money to INEC to prosecute that election for logistics, it is going to inject more cash into Nigerian system.
Sir, there's something I want to ask you. This is a directive given by CBN. I mean, before the issue of the reissuing of the old 200 Naira note. Before now, CBN said the old 500 Naira and the 1,000 Naira note is a closed chapter, which means it has lost its legal tender, especially when it comes to the status. Now we're seeing a situation where some governors, especially APC governors, are revolting against that, especially saying that any bank who fails to accept such money, such bank might be destroyed, given the statement he issued, the El Rufai. Is it not a situation of a house going against itself, especially understanding the fact that we are getting closer to the election?
You may say it's a situation of a house going against itself, but don't forget that this is politics. And we have all seen the political platoon that is causing or making those governors speak in that manner. Don't forget that RFI have openly said that the policy is targeted against their own presidential candidates. So you see that the reason he's towing that line is not far-fetched. But what I'm looking at is, even if you have a situation where state governors are giving counter directive that is a variant with that of Mr. President, do they have capacity to enforce those orders? Obviously, no.
As much as they don't have the capacity, what's the indication? What's the negative indication?
The
As regards
negative
going
indication
against the
is
same.
that it's a recipe for crisis. It's a recipe for anarchy if it is not properly handled.
One of the things President Muhammadu Buhari reiterated during his declaration on February 16th was that this policy is aimed at fighting vote buying. But apparently, now Nigerians are more impoverished than they were maybe last year, maybe 4 years ago. But it means that it is cheaper to even buy the vote of Nigerians now. So is it achieving that purpose? And also, it's looking like this is more political, because if the CBN came out to say they are doing this to fight inflation, inflation has risen up to 21.8% as a January's figure that was released last Wednesday. So it's looking like this is more political, targeted towards politicians, and Nigerians all have to suffer for it.
Your first question, whether it's achieving its purpose to curb vote buying, I'll tell you that if you're not achieving it, you will not see people crying foul. You will not see people who are supposed to be the government supporters of governments of the day crying foul. And I used to ask one question. So you think
it's achieving it?
It's achieving it. I used to ask one question. I said, those who are opposed to this policy, who are using Nigerians, the suffering of the ordinary man as excuse, which I know before now, they are not used to fighting for the common man anyway. Why is it not convenient for them to be pushing for CBN, federal government, to release more new Naira notes? Why are they harping on allowing them to use old Naira notes? And I recall that Mr. President said the other time that 3 months window is enough for anybody to exchange his old Naira note for new ones. It's another thing to argue that the new one is not
although that's not the practice in Senate clients.
It's another thing to argue that the new one is not available. But before they start arguing that new one is not available, the window provided that says return your old Naira note. Why did these people not avail themselves the window of opportunity to return it in the first place?
Are you also aware that right about now, even those who have this money stashed in their houses are now using individuals who are not known faces to bring back this money? And of course, there is an investigation now going on, which means that certain person might be called back to come and explain.
I think that one actually happened in Kwara State.
So how do you think people will be more confident enough to bring back the money, understanding the fact that there is an investigation going on?
It's not even about being confident, because for what I read, just like you said, in that scenario at Lauren, even the anti-graft agencies was educating people who may be fronting for politicians.
Yes.
The implication of coming with money, you cannot substantiate the source. That they stand the risk of losing it.
How about businessmen?
I think what the government stands
How about businessmen?
No, if you are a businessman, your source of fund is genuine. You have nothing to worry about. But I think what is happening is this. You have a situation where the government may be looking at, okay, if you have your maybe a good number of cash, old Naira notes at your disposal, and the source is questionable, and you are not able to bring it to central bank to redeem, it means at the end of the day it will be waste. Because for EFCC personnel to be educating Nigerians who are perhaps coming to lodge this huge amount of money about the implication of bringing money you cannot substitute.
Don't you also think that there are some certain personalities, because of their personality status, might not be willing to come to the bank?
I don't know what you mean by personality status, because I'm aware that even if you have 1 billion and you decide
Let's give an instance.
Let's
give an instance. A person like Otedola coming into the bank.
Do you
expect him now to sit in the bank?
That is not the issue. What I'm trying to say is this: if somebody who is as worthy as that decides to use somebody to come and lodge money, you have nothing to worry about, because the source of the money is genuine. Well, I have right to delegate somebody to come and do bank transaction for me, as long as the person who is bringing the money can attest to the money is not mine, it's coming from this source, and the person who sent me obtain the money genuinely. I don't think the person have anything to worry about.
No, well, it appears you agree with the fact that this is more political than economical.
It's neither not here. It's neither here nor there.
How do you mean?
This is how I mean.
Is it achieving any economic
What is
goal?
the possibility that there won't be vote buying at this time? Because people
it-
can
is it
bet.
even
Look at the
achieving any
woman who was
economic goal?
crying.
Tell
Look
us
at the woman
about
who was
it.
crying.
Okay, if you are looking at the economic benefits, one, you have a situation where, according to CBN and the government, you before now or since the commencement of the policy, is very difficult for people to pay ransom. And I think it's part of what they set out to achieve. And like you mentioned, the area
Although there have
of
been
buying,
reports that there are still, all those things are still going on,
it's
you know,
an
in the
isolated
background.
case. You cannot say the situation is what it used to be before the policy. Like the issue of vote buying. You see,
Vote buying is still political.
no, what I'm trying to say in essence is, I say it's neither here nor there because nobody was mentioned. This policy started way back last year. And when the CBN gave the guideline and decided that old Naira note will cease to exist on the 31st of December, there was no much issue. And we were even surprised that people were raising issue of terrorism financing against the CBN governors at that time. To tell you that people who knew the reason of this policy started fighting even before it came to the, even before it started affecting the ordinary man.
All right, we'll have to leave it there because there are other issues to look at. But Matthew Oluku is still right here with us. We'll be right back.